It's time we hear from someone who's thinking about this at scale, someone who's working with enterprises and Fortune 500 companies to transform how they use AI, and someone who's making that knowledge accessible to hundreds of thousands of people every single day. Justin Fineberg is the CEO and founder of Cassidy. He serves as an AI consultant and speaker, advising organizations from startups to Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft and Amazon, on leveraging AI technologies. He also shares insights on how enterprises are using AI in practice to accelerate work, reduce busy work, and achieve real business results with a growing community of over 400,000 AI enthusiasts across TikTok and Instagram. Justin will be joining us live today, and we're going to have some time at the end for some questions from the audience. So if you have those, please type them in the chat so we can share with him. We're very excited. Can't wait to hear his perspective. So Justin, welcome to our AI Day Virtual Summit celebration.
Hey, everybody. I am Justin Fineberg, super excited and happy to be here. Such an exciting time. So I'm happy to be here today. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cassidy, and just a little background about me before we dive in. So Cassidy, we are a platform that helps business build AI automations around the way that they actually work without requiring the technical know-how to build really powerful things with AI. We started the company specifically for small businesses and the people that we build for, because we started with a simple belief that the people who understand the work should be the ones to improve the work, right? The business owner, the salesperson, the operation leader, the customer service employee who understands a process should not need to become an engineer before they can automate that work. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about making the case on why I believe small businesses have a real advantage over larger companies actually in the age of AI. And obviously large companies have more money, they got more employees, they've got bigger technology teams, but small businesses possess something that makes them increasingly valuable. Small businesses are closer to the customer, they're much more closer to the work, and they're closer to the problems that actually need to be solved. And so while the underlying AI technology is becoming available to everybody, a large company and a 10-person company can use many of the same models, but the real difference is no longer simply about who has access to AI. The difference is who understands where to really apply it and who can learn from it from the fastest. So basically, belief here is that AI really rewards proximity to problems and the speed of learning. And so that is really where small businesses can outperform much larger companies. Before kind of explaining that advantage a little bit more deep, I think I want to start with the mistake that I see most companies making when they are really thinking about AI. Right? I think right now we're in this phase where a lot of small businesses, they start with the tool. They ask, when I have conversations with people with small businesses, it's like, should I use ChatGPT? Should I be using Claude? Should I use Gemini? Should I use N8N? Whatever product they heard most recently. And I think the market really right now encourages this way of thinking, right? Every week there's a new tool, a new feature, a new model, right? A new claim that this particular tool is the one that they need to adopt. And I think what we run into is really what I think of as just tool tourism, right? A company is trying out a bunch of different platforms, seeing impressive demos, and they really just never get any value from AI, right? They ultimately are just jumping around from tool to tool without seeing any impact. And the thing that I urge businesses to do is to think about, instead of asking the question, what AI tool should we buy? Small businesses need to be looking really at a normal week and asking, where are customers waiting for us? What work does the team repeatedly complain about? Which questions are being answered over and over again? What are the opportunities that are falling through the cracks? And so I really think it's important when you come to this, to adopting AI, it's really start with friction in your business, not with the question, what AI tool do I buy? And I believe in this so strongly because this is exactly what I learned before starting Cassidy, our company, right? And the AI market looked very, very different than the way that it looks today. So before starting Cassidy, I had early access to GPT-3. So this was even prior to ChatGPT coming out, right? There was no AI was not this mainstream thing that everybody is talking about. It was much more niche then. And when we started building with the technology very, very early on, I was doing a lot of consulting with companies about how AI and this technology might help with them. And the conversation was very different at that point, right? Businesses were not comparing long lists of products. They weren't asking whether they should use Claude or ChatGPT or whether one automation platform was better. It was all about asking a more direct and just more useful question, which is just how can AI help me, right? Because there was not really a tool ecosystem at the time. It didn't really exist whatsoever, right? So, a business owner would come to us and tell us, hey, we spend hours answering the same customer questions. Our team is manually reviewing the same documents every single day. And so the biggest unlock with AI almost always happened when the business owner could clearly explain the problem that they had. So once someone could tell us how a process worked, what information was required, what it could like, what were the common cases, what situations required human judgment, it actually became much easier to see how AI could help. And so that's really where, when we started the company, it was about how do we build a product for these business owners who truly understand problems that exist in their business, and we want to connect them to the technology straightforward. So Cassidy became a promise of accessibility because the people close to the work were the ones who are able to build the complex automations and really shape how AI does the work. And so that's when I look at like why we even started the company, was because people could clearly articulate the problem they had. And we simply wanted to build it so that they could ultimately build the solution. So I think after spending really the last 3 years building Cassidy and watching all these companies implement AI, it's that small businesses are often better positioned to do this than they realize, right? Because they're the ones who can clearly see a problem and fix it right away. And so the thing that I kind of see most present, and why I think small businesses have such an advantage here, is that the biggest problem that large companies have with AI is not necessarily the access to this technology. It really is it's the distance, right? There's often a large distance between the customer experiencing a problem, the employee doing the work, the executive deciding what should change, the technology team building that solution, who's the person who's authorized to approve it. And so even though an employee at a big company who's closest to the customer may know exactly what's broken, they still have to move through managers and department and procurement and legal and security to use AI to make that change. And so really, as that problem kind of moves through that chain, context gets lost. What began as like a very specific customer problem really becomes this just broad corporate AI initiative, AI strategy, and nothing ever really gets changed, right? And so small businesses are in a unique place because there is far less distance between that problem that they discover and the person who can actually make the change. Fundamentally, the fact that small businesses are closer to the work versus large companies gives them a major advantage when it comes to AI. You know why a process exists. You know which parts are essential and which parts are only there because that's how the company has always done it. And so when you have that knowledge, it's exactly what is needed to really build an effective AI system to automate much more complex work. I think the other sort of advantage with small businesses that they have, and that people are uniquely in a position, is that they can actually test and learn much faster. I think the thing about AI is that it is never perfect the first time you set something up, right? I mean, everybody had that moment when they started using ChatGPT, when it just came out. It was everybody would try one little thing and it wouldn't work, right? And they would just abandon it immediately. And so your ability, and that's still the case where you talk to people all the time where, hey, just AI doesn't work for me. AI just is not, I tried to do this thing, it doesn't work for me. The key and a core to effective AI usage is constant iteration, constant improvement. Small businesses are unique because they have that ability to have tighter feedback loops, and AI rewards that. Where you actually, when something is not working, when AI is not working for you, You could go in, make a tweak, continue to refine, continue to improve, see another customer issue come in, make the AI system even better. And small businesses are able to run that tighter feedback loop. I think the thing as well is that the impact of AI when you're a small business is much more visible than it is a larger company, right? So if a 3-person team spends 10 hours every week copying information, right? That's meaningful, right? It's a meaningful limitation on like the company's capacity. And so if AI can give that team 10 hours back, the effect is immediately visible, right? If a customer response time falls from 2 days to 10 minutes, right, you can really feel that, right? If proposals are going out the same afternoon that you receive an RFP, that impact is real. You can feel that. And so I really believe that when you talk about who could benefit most from AI, the impact is much more obvious and immediate. It's more tangible for a small business as well. So even though large companies right now have more resources, potentially more expertise, and they can hire people who have been and worked in AI, and they could take the AI workshops, the real advantage is the proximity and the clarity over what problems can be solved by the technology. I really think that the business that is closest to the problem can often build the best solution to that problem. So one kind of way that I do think about how to have bigger unlocks with AI is kind of a mental model that I use of like, what is AI and what role should it be playing inside of a company? And I always like to say that you should think of AI as a very fast, very smart intern, right? A junior teammate who went to the Ivy League, who went to Harvard, they went to the best school, they've read every book, they got a 36 on their ACT, but they're an intern and they're just getting started. And the reason is that because this really smart, capable junior teammate has the ability to do, can read anything, can summarize, can classify information, can extract, is really good at Excel, can go through the nitty gritty of filling out an Excel sheet. Hey, you need to put together a website. They could put together a website. And I think that most companies test AI in a way that they would never really train an employee, right? People with AI, they make the mistake of they give it a vague instruction. They don't really provide it any company documents. They don't show it examples of what is good. And they really come to AI and they expect perfect judgment and perfect results immediately. But in the same way that like, okay, you've got a great intern out of Harvard, Stanford, and they come to your business and you don't give them any context about the business and you expect them to do these tasks. It doesn't matter that they're so smart and that they were a straight A student. They don't do it well. And I think that is the same truth to AI, right? You hire a new employee, you give that person no training or context, and you say, handle customer service, right? No one would expect that employee to perform perfectly, right? So now the goal really is that it's not to turn AI into like the person who's going to make every important decision in the same way that you wouldn't rely on a Stanford intern to do that. But the goal is to let AI prepare more of the work so that people can spend more time on the judgment and the relationships and the situations that genuinely require your experience, your unique understanding of the business that you're in, operate best. And so I really like to use that analogy of thinking of AI as that straight A Stanford student who you give them the right context. There's no limit to what they could take on, but you ultimately are the one who still has the best judgment and understanding of how you make the most impact in the business. When I think about like, just to get a little bit more practical about making an impact and kind of getting started with AI, and I think do not begin the conversation about AI in your business with some like company-wide AI transformation, right? You really, it is a crawl, walk, run approach is what I find best in small businesses. It's starting with a reoccurring problem where improving the process would provide a visible result quickly. So in other words, low-hanging fruit, right? And so I think the best way to do this when we look at companies is start by auditing a normal week, right? What is the work that actually happens inside the company rather than starting with some high level overview brainstorm of where AI can make an impact? It's where are customers, employees waiting? Where's information being moved manually from one system to another? Where is the same content being drafted repeatedly over and over? Where do mistakes and delays and missed opportunities really happen repeatedly? And I like to think of it, and I like to use this thing called the 5-hour test. So you want to look for a process that consumes at least 5 hours each week across the business. It doesn't need to be 5 hours from one person. It could be 15 minutes each day from 6 employees. It could be dozens of short little interruptions. 5 hours isn't the like a perfect rule, but what it will do is it forces you to focus on a problem that is sophisticated enough to actually matter, right? So where are that 5-hour painful problem in your business, right? And so I think usually it's a 4 characteristics, right? The process happens repeatedly, right? It's daily, weekly. It's a process that involves a lot of documents and informations and emails and moving information around. It's where a good employee can really explain the process, right? Is kind of the third thing here, is that you can actually articulate what does good look like. If no one can really explain the work, then AI is not going to magically create a reliable process, right? So before even automating any work, you need to understand the work. And the fourth thing I would say is improving the process would produce an outcome that matters. And I like to harp on this because you really do, if you want to have AI be impactful, and you're like, we want AI in our business, and that's the mandate right now. If you can't really identify what a measurable difference would be with introducing AI into the system, then it's not worth the process, right? So I like to think of just starting with one thing, give AI one clear, valuable job before trying to give it to the entire company or some big transformation there. Look, when I think about kind of small businesses and AI, I think, look, the same core AI models that are coming out every few weeks, there's a new powerful model, right? It's accessible to everybody. And so the technology itself is not going to be the thing that determines who wins or your competitors are going to do better, right? Everybody has access to the same technology, right? The advantage is going to belong really to the businesses that can deeply understand their work, can identify where friction exists in their business, can teach AI what good actually looks like, and then can improve that process quickly. And it's not expecting that it's going to be a sudden fix, but being able to do that quickly. And so you all as small business owners, you are closer to your customers, you're closer to those workflows. You have the ability to see the results of AI much sooner than anybody else, right? Being the owner of the business, you can truly drive the change of AI quickly. So I think when I say the kind of the key takeaway here is like when you leave this talk here, do not begin by really making a list of like AI tools to try. I'm sure today you've kind of been told, hey, you should try this, you should use this, I use this for that, I use that for this. It's really starting and looking at a normal week inside the business and identifying where are the processes that are consuming at least 5 hours. You're going to write down that process. You're going to understand what information is required. How do your best employees handle it? And then you're going to ask whether AI can take responsibility for the first draft. Can it do the first review, right? Can it organize it? Can you do a little bit of research? I'm not going to expect it like I would if I was doing it. I'm going to expect it like a Stanford intern. And as much context that I want to give them, the better it's going to be. And so really don't leave by going, hey, what AI tool? Leave thinking, what bottleneck should I remove first? I really think that in the age of AI, right, being small does not only mean having fewer resources, it can actually mean being closer to the truth, to learning faster, and having a real competitive advantage with the most powerful technology in our lifetime. I will pause there and I will be able to take any questions from the audience. All right, awesome. I got some questions. Cool. All right, let's jump through them. Question number 1. It's cool to learn about the competitive advantage for small businesses. Does doing tourism upfront actually save time and money in the long run? Or is it just a necessary exploration phase? So, I mean, look, I think when you're talking about the impact of AI in your business, it's always just like you don't want to be in a situation where you're a hammer looking for a nail, right? The hammer looking for a nail problem, where you found these tools and you see the cool tools out there, and then you're trying to take that tool and you're trying to, how can I fit this in the business? You want to start with, what is the nail? Where's the nail? What's the problem? And then I'm going to go find the hammer to solve that problem with. That's why I think, like, listen, there's no shame to doing some tool tourism and playing out and checking out things. And I think everybody has done that. It's like when ChatGPT came out, it was really awesome to see ChatGPT write a poem. It was pretty mind blowing 3 years ago, but it didn't really ever have an impact. That piece of it didn't really have much of an impact in our business. I never really used, I mean, most people probably have never used the poem writing functionality of AI, as cool as it is, to actually make an impact in your business. And I do think that that extends to all tools. When you say tool tourism, are you recommending we try free versions first or something else? When I say tool tourism, I'm saying if you're, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, try free tools out. But once again, start with the problem and then look for the tool that solves that particular problem. On Cassidy, what surprised you the most about how small business owners actually use your platform? Yeah, so I think if you guys are interested in, you have identified a problem in your business and you're looking to solve it, right? And for a lot of businesses, that might be something like, hey, we respond to a lot of proposals, or customer support. We handle the same tickets over and over again. We're manually moving documents from one place to another. At the end of the day, we built Cassidy to try to be this malleable tool that I can solve my particular problems with. And so it's kind of how I started. Cassidy was more helping business identify the problems. And then I wanted to build, how did I make it easy for them to have the solution, to build the solution on a platform where they didn't have to be technical to solve that particular problem. So I would definitely recommend, as you're kind of going through this exercise and you've identified, hey, the RFP process in my business, that takes me 5 hours a week. I think I could cut that down. That's where something going to like Cassidy could be very impactful, right? We have a free version online. Try to automate that RFP process end to end with something like Cassidy. Next question is, what's one thing you think small business owners should be preparing for in the next 6 to 12 months around AI? So I think this is a constant expectation that I think small businesses should have, which is you should constantly be expecting that the models will continue to get better. So knowing that when sometimes you'll run into a situation where AI is not good, and maybe there truly is a limit and the model isn't good enough to do something today. If you wait 12 months, even 6 months, new AI models are coming out that unlocks more capabilities always. So never drop a use case because you feel like AI can't do it. Understand the use case, see where the limitation of AI, but then wait and be patient for 12 months, because a new model will come around that unlocks more and more use cases and opportunities. If you even rewind back to 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out, it is amazing. It's astonishing how much progress has been made with the models that are what they're capable of today versus what they were capable of then. They look nothing alike. And I imagine that same difference will be visible between the models today and the models we'll have 3 years from now. If you could give a piece of advice to small business owner watching who's nervous about AI, what would it be? I think the feeling of anxiety and nerves, when you really feel it in your body, is very similar to excitement. And I think that you kind of have to embrace that. This technology and AI and the changing of the world is inevitable. And just because you're nervous about something doesn't mean you should stare and hide your face away from it. It means run towards it, understand it. Why are you scared of it? What is scary? I'm scared of how it can impact my business. Great. That should reveal to you potentially where are the biggest weaknesses in the business. I'm nervous that this thing is going to happen and the competitor is going to start doing this. And that is should actually be a very incredible exercise for you to identify where are the biggest holes in your strategy as a business owner. I think as a business owner, you have to turn and face your fears. You can't run away from them, especially with the technology and the inevitability that is coming with and has continued to come with AI. Next question is what's the simplest AI tool you've seen actually change someone's business? I mean, I'm going to kind of give a pretty bad answer here, or just a pretty simple one, and just say ChatGPT. I mean, any chat tool, the foundational model itself, right? Like Cassidy is a tool where we build a lot of complex automations. We're able to automate a lot of really even more difficult work end to end. But ChatGPT in its most basic form can make leaps and bounds impactful results to your business. And so, you don't have to jump to Claude Code because you've heard, I got to start using more complex tools. You can start having the impact with the most basic tool today. And then when you build your way up to it, you got tools like Cassidy that can take things even further and automate work that you probably don't even imagine can be automated today when you give AI the proper context and process that you run. What is the fastest you've seen someone go from, I don't know anything, to actually using it? I mean, I think the fastest I've seen someone go, I don't know anything, to actually using it is 15 minutes. And I think that anybody can experience that when they have that unlock. Or when you truly sit down and you've articulated what is the problem in the business that I wish could solve with AI, and you actually really try to solve it. Maybe you watch a 15-minute YouTube tutorial, you'd be surprised by the impact you can have. And so I think that the speed in which people are able to learn and pick up and see where the impact of AI is pretty tremendous. And there's nothing stopping you from being that type of person as well. All right, next question. Do you think that businesses will invest into using a closed RAG model architecture as a proprietary model versus using specific products from OpenAI or Gemini to protect IP or other information? I actually think that when you use the enterprise APIs, or when you use, we're getting a little bit in the nitty-gritty here. As long as you're not using the free version, and as long as the models are not training on your data, that's the most important thing you should ask any AI tool, anything you're using is this going to train new models on my data? You don't really have a risk that the proprietary information is going to be pulled away or get out there, right? So as long as you're using secure enterprise APIs, I actually believe it's totally okay to be using Claude and OpenAI. Now, the benefit of the open source models, obviously, is you could do a lot more. You can host them in your own environment. They're cheaper to run. There are other benefits. But I think from the perspective as a small business owner thinking about protecting their IP, as long as you're using a secure enterprise environment with these models where you have the right terms and conditions in place, and most notably, no model training, you're safe to use those models.
What is the best way to identify which AI tool is the right one for your business?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the more specific you can get around the problem you're solving, when you go to research what tool to use best, you'll get a better answer. And to answer your question more directly, what is the best way to do that tactically? Ask AI. Go pull up ChatGPT, say, here's the problem in my business, and write out really deep cut. Here's all these problems I want to solve. Here's everything. Here's the true problem. What is the best tool? Do this. And you should be able to get a very specific, probably a high quality result just from AI itself. And maybe we'll mention Cassidy in there. And if so, great. We're excited to see you.
What kind of small business should not be investing in AI automation yet? And what should they focus on first?
Yeah, I think a business who should not be focused on AI is a business who is not looking to be around in 10 years. No, I'm being facetious, but I really think that I think that everybody, I mean, this is such a powerful technology. It's applicable in so many ways, and in your business, but in your personal life, and in how you can, it's just so many ways that I really don't think that there's anybody out there who shouldn't start to think about it. Now, should someone go out and everybody should go like AIify everything in their business and then try to automate every component they can? Of course not. But everybody should learn, and everybody should be thinking about, what does AI mean for my business, and how do I get ahead of that?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Jeff. This has been very insightful. We'll hope to stay in touch. On behalf of America's BDC, we're very grateful for your time today.
Send me a connection on LinkedIn if anyone wants to ever chat further. Thanks so much.